They enjoy munching on carrots, and while they can give us a sharp bite if they feel threatened, they don't typically do so. Welcome to Nature Explorers Insects, presented by the Danbury Public Library, where we explore the tiny, wonderful world of bugs, insects, and arachnids. The last few times we've met, we've talked about a certain type of insect. This week we're going to do something a little different. We're going to look at some of the largest insects in the world. The longest insect in the world is this guy here. No, that's not a stick. It's an insect, a stick insect. They're also known as stick bugs and walking sticks, and they look really bizarre. The way they look is a form of camouflage that lets them hide among branches, sticks, and leaves. As long as they stand still, most predators will never know they're there. Stick insects vary in size depending on what species they are. The smallest stick insect, Tamima christinae, is only 2 to 3 centimeters long. That's at most just over an inch. Well, that's itty bitty. Why are we talking about them when we're supposed to be looking for the largest insects in the world? Well, that's because that's just the smallest stick insect. The largest species, the Phryganstria chinesis sow, or the Chinese giant stick insect, is the longest insect in the world. This recently discovered stick insect is nearly 25 inches long. That's more than 2 feet and about as long as an adult's arm. Wow, right? The species was discovered in 2014 in southern China by Zhao Li, who went searching for the bug after hearing reports from farmers about a huge insect as thick as an adult's index finger. Zhao Li has been studying these amazing insects in his lab since, and has discovered that they have a sweet tooth. We discovered they like eating strawberry jam, he says. We worried that the artificial additives might not be good for their health, so we only give it to them very occasionally. But we found out that they would give up other food for it. While massive, these are gentle giants who don't bite or sting. They love to nibble on plants, especially strawberries. To find our next giant insect, we need to travel from China to New Zealand so we can meet the giant Weta. If you think these guys look like giant mutant crickets, you're not far off. Crickets and Wetas are actually related. These insects can weigh as much as 3 ounces, and that's a lot for a bug. In fact, that's heavier than a sparrow. These chunky bugs can reach lengths of up to 4 inches long, and while they look kind of freaky, they're not dangerous to humans. They enjoy munching on carrots, and while they can give us a sharp bite if they feel threatened, they don't typically do so. That long, spiky-looking thing on their back end is not a stinger. It's what female Wetas use to lay their eggs. While related to crickets, the giant Weta is actually too heavy to fly. And this is a problem for the giant Weta. Their numbers in the wild are going way down. When people started to settle in New Zealand, they ended up accidentally bringing the rats with them, making the rats an introduced species. So suddenly now, these huge insects who once had very little predators now have a new introduced one, which is wiping out their population. These massive insects that used to roam the whole of New Zealand are now mostly only found on Little Barrier Island. Because of this, several conservation groups have begun keeping Wetas in captivity, hoping to increase their numbers and reintroduce them to the wild, and bring the species back from the brink of extinction. So we've seen the world's biggest cricket-like creature, right? Yeah. But what about the biggest beetle? Well, for that, we need to look at this guy, the Goliath beetle. There are 5 different species of Goliath beetles on Earth, each with their own unique coloring and markings. Goliath beetles can reach lengths of nearly 4.5 inches and weigh as much as 3.5 ounces when in their larva stage. When they become adults, they weigh about half as much. So why are they so big, but they don't weigh much? Well, this is because it gives them a benefit. Once they become adults, they're big and they're kind of funny colored and they stand out, which means things want to eat them. So unlike the giant Weta, which is heavy and can't fly, the Goliath beetle can still fly, even though it's very big. So where do these creatures live? Well, they are native to tropical and subtropical rainforests in southeastern Africa, and they live mostly on tree sap and fruit when they're adults. But before they grow into adults, they're those big, fat larvae. And remember, these guys are very heavy when they're larvae, 3.5 ounces. And they need a lot of protein in this stage. They can't really get that from tree sap and fruit. As a result, they eat a wider diet when they're larvae. Things like plants, dung, and what they can scavenge from other animals. So if they find bits of stuff left behind that maybe a big predator has left, they'll eat that up. This makes them great for the environment because they're kind of nature's little cleanup crews. You can tell male and female Goliath beetles apart because of the shape of their heads. Male Goliath beetles have Y-shaped horns on their heads, which they use to fight off other males so they can claim territory. Female Goliath beetles, meanwhile, have wedge-shaped heads, which they use to burrow into the ground so they can lay their eggs. Thing is, these beetles aren't just the biggest beetles in the world, they're also among the strongest, able to carry up to 850 times their own weight. That'd be like a human who weighs 150 pounds being able to carry 127,500 pounds worth of weight. Whoa, right? It's amazing. Goliath beetles are excellent flyers as well as wonderful climbers, though you won't see them perched on leaves. No, the reason for that is they're just too big and actually too heavy to stay on a leaf. The leaf will drop them right down. But this really cool thing about them when they're flying is that they are still very big insects, and their wings have to beat at a very quick pace in order to get them up in the air. And because of this, they make a lot of noise. In fact, some people say they sound like helicopters or even jackhammers when they're flying around because those wings are beating so quickly to keep that huge body up in the air. They also like to make a humming and buzzing sound, which they use to talk to other Goliath beetles. Now these guys are big looking insects, and they're kind of creepy looking, aren't they? So does that mean they're dangerous to humans? Not at all. While these guys are aggressive to other beetles as they fight over territory, they really are not a problem at all for people. The most they can do is maybe give us a little pinch with their mandibles. But even then, these are gentle creatures who really aren't going to bother us unless we're actively harassing them. Once they're adults, Goliath beetles have a very short lifespan, about 6 months. Since it takes them about 6 months to become an adult once they've hatched, that means they're alive for about a year. It's not too long. We've met the giant Goliath beetle, the largest beetle on Earth. Now it's time to meet one of the largest moths, the Atlas moth. These natives of Southeast Asia are bigger than some birds. Their wingspan can reach widths of 1 foot with a surface area of 62 square inches. And these giants were even massive when they were caterpillars. Atlas moth caterpillars can reach lengths of 4.5 inches long and be over 1 inch thick. That's a chunky caterpillar. And what they do is they pretty much eat constantly because they need to consume enough food during this time to fuel their caterpillar, cocoon, and adult stages of life. But chubby caterpillars are very tempting food for other animals like birds and reptiles. So, what do you do if you're a caterpillar and you're kind of chunky, and you just want to be allowed to eat and not be bothered. Well, what these guys do is they spray a stinky liquid a distance of up to 1 foot from their bodies when they feel threatened. And that stinky liquid is usually enough to make most animals go, oh, I don't want to mess with that. Now, the brown silk these caterpillars use in their cocoons so they can become the moths is very durable. So much so that it's often collected once the moths have hatched and used to make other items, including purses. When many people think of moths, they picture chewed up clothing in their mind. That's what moths usually like to do. They like to eat things up, including cloth. But these guys don't do that. The reason is atlas moths have no mouths, none at all, which means they're unable to munch away on clothing. In fact, they don't munch away on anything. Once an atlas moth is an adult, it actually can't eat. That's why it has to store all that fuel away for when it becomes an adult, because that's what it's going to live on for its whole adult life. Unfortunately, because of this, atlas moths have a very short lifespan once they get out of the cocoon. They live for about a week, maybe 2, which is really a shame because they're absolutely beautiful creatures, right? To find our next giant, we need to travel to Papua New Guinea off the northern coast of Australia. Here we'll find the world's largest butterfly, the Queen Alexandra's birdwing. This amazing butterfly was discovered by English naturalist and wildlife collector Albert Stuart Meek in 1906. Meek was working for a rich collector at the time, and when he saw the Queen Alexandra's birdwing, he knew his client would want one. That first specimen was taken down by a shotgun. It's only due to the large size of this butterfly that there was anything even left to collect. The females, which are larger than the males, have a wingspan of about 11 inches. The males, meanwhile, their wingspan is about 9 inches. And unlike the atlas moth, these guys can eat when they're adults. They use a proboscis, a long straw-like tongue, to drink nectar from flowers like hibiscus. Queen Alexandra's birdwing caterpillars eat pipevine plants, which are poisonous to most animals. This makes the caterpillars and the adult butterflies poisonous as well. Because of this, even if an animal tries to eat one of these butterflies, they're going to feel kind of sick. And they're going to go, ugh, I don't like that. I won't eat that again. So the next time they see one of these butterflies or that caterpillar, they're going to remember, last time I ate that, I was not feeling good at all. I'm going to avoid that one. Once an adult, a Queen Alexandra's birdwing will live for around 3 months. That still doesn't seem very long for us, but it's much longer than the atlas moth, right? Yeah. These beautiful creatures are highly endangered due to them only living in the rainforest of the Oro province of southeastern Papua New Guinea. Now, this area is roughly around 463 square miles. Now, this sounds like a lot of territory, but when we consider that that is the only place on the whole of the earth where this species can be found, it's not very good. And there's another problem that these butterflies are dealing with. Most of their habitat is being changed into farmland, which is removing the plants that these butterflies depend on in order to live. Thank you for joining me this time on Nature Explores Insects. I hope you've enjoyed learning about some of the giants of the insect world. Until next time, have fun exploring and stay curious. Bye, everyone.